Now in Syria, the unrest there seems to be spreading towards neighbouring Lebanon as well. Witnesses report that Syrian security force snipers have killed 3 people in the western town of Talkalakh. The Lebanese army has been sending more troops to the border. Hundreds of people have already crossed from Syria into Lebanon to escape the unrest. Zeina Khodr has this update from Lebanon's capital, Beirut.
Calm has returned to the border region, at least on the Lebanese side, but the situation is different across the border in Syria and the town of Talkalakh, which is a mere 5 kilometers from the border. I managed to talk to a resident in Talkalakh. He told me that people are staying indoors, people are afraid, and they hear the sound of gunfire. And like you mentioned earlier, there are reports that 3 protesters were actually killed by sniper fire. It's very hard for us to really independently confirm what is going on inside Syria, but what we did see today was heavy gunfire along the border, dozens and dozens of Syrians fleeing the unrest, fleeing Talkalakh, crossing the border into Lebanon, an unofficial border, crossing a very porous region, really. And we have reports that a number of those who were fleeing, as well as Lebanese civilians and the Lebanese army soldier, were wounded during the gunfire. It seems that Talkalakh is the latest town that the military intends to crush the protest movement. The Syrian state media saying that armed men from the cities of Homs and Banyas have fled to Talkalakh. State media is also reporting that fighters have crossed into Syria from Lebanon to back up the protest movement. Like you mentioned earlier, the Lebanese army beefing up its presence there. We have some sources are saying that that was upon the request of the Syrian government to tighten the control along the border. There is a fear here, really, that the unrest in Syria could spill across the border. There have, over the past week or so, we've seen the military lay siege to a number of urban areas, a number of protest hubs. We saw that in Homs and we saw that in Banyas. But protests are continuing, yes, at a much smaller scale. But now we're hearing, from the Syrian government saying that they're pushing forward, trying to organize some sort of national dialogue. But what we're hearing from opposition figures really is that we do not want any dialogue unless the Syrian government shows some good intentions, like release thousands of prisoners and stop military action before any sort of dialogue can start.